When id Software invented the modern first-person shooter in 1992 with Wolfenstein 3D, they set the tone for all other 90s shooters, namely, ridiculous. Between the battle mech Hitler of Wolfenstein and the Demons of Doom, shooters became the genre of fantasy, science fiction, and silly. But 5 years later, Hollywood director Steven Spielberg started work on his World War II epic Saving Private Ryan. He was trying to make the film as realistic and authentic as he could, and as he did so, it occurred to him that his company DreamWorks video game division could be doing something similar. There had never been a historically accurate shooter before. Maybe it was time to break bold new ground. So Spielberg went to his team at DreamWorks Interactive and proposed the idea. For over a decade, that idea has spawned one of the most successful and the single largest franchise in shooter history. But after so many games, the series found that it had oversaturated the market that it had created in the first place and ran itself into the ground. And meanwhile, their competition has stolen the show. But Medal of Honor is about to see if their franchise still has what it takes to rise above and beyond the Call of Duty. After Spielberg pitched the idea, the concept quickly took on a life of its own. For one thing, in the late 90s, console shooters were a laughingstock. Despite high-profile successes like GoldenEye for the Nintendo 64, for the most part, good shooters stuck to the PC. DreamWorks Interactive bucked the trend and developed their game exclusively for the original PlayStation. Technically, it would also be the first World War II game exclusive to the PS, but then again, in many ways, this was the first real World War II game at all. To ensure that, DreamWorks brought on board retired Marine Captain Dale Dye, a military consultant working with Spielberg on Saving Private Ryan. Dye made sure that everything in the game was true to history, from the weapon models to the uniforms to the sound effects. Where other shooters featured an invincible superhero single-handedly dispatching an army, Medal of Honor would for the first time make gamers feel like just another hapless soul trapped on the front lines. In other words, like a real hero. When the game released in November 1999, it was a revelation. The production values on the title were absolutely through the roof. While the visuals were stunning, it was the sound that truly blew audiences away. The full cacophony of warfare was brought to gamers' homes for the first time, and it sounded great. But even more astounding was the score, a full orchestral soundtrack when synth beats were still the norm. From top to bottom, Medal of Honor presented itself as the next leap forward in interactive entertainment. The game itself was never repetitive, varying from frontline combat to infiltration and stealth. The gamer played as an OSS agent recruited out of the army, and thus was both spy and soldier, a nice convenience for mission designers. But no matter if he was sneaking or shooting, as Lieutenant Jimmy Patterson, the player always faced some of the best AI ever seen in a game. Throwing a grenade was nothing new. Having that same grenade thrown back in your face was a whole new ballgame. It reviewed and sold like crazy, helped in no small part by the popularity of Saving Private Ryan. Suddenly, both realistic World War shooters and console shooters were in. DreamWorks Interactive had created their own subgenre, and they were its king. Such was their success that their publisher, Electronic Arts, wanted them all to themselves. In February 2000, EA announced that it was buying DreamWorks Interactive outright, and the studio was soon renamed Electronic Arts Los Angeles. In October of the same year, DreamWorks released their follow-up, Medal of Honor Underground. While the actual gameplay would be fairly similar, the development team made the bold decision to shift the story away from a male American soldier and onto a female French resistance fighter. This neatly allowed the game to go to locations that most games didn't touch on, such as North Africa and Greece. However, despite being praised for improved graphics and AI, and for providing another stellar Sonic experience, the game had one drawback. It was still a PS1 game, and the PS2 had launched that same month. All the marketing buzz and hype went towards the new console and its games. However, there were still plenty of PS1 owners, and the new console was backwards compatible, so Underground didn't want for an audience. After Underground, DreamWorks, now EA/LA, got to work on a next-gen game. But now that EA owned the franchise, they wanted it in as many spaces as possible. It was time to bring the new superstar to the genre's original home, the PC. This title would not be developed by EA/LA, but by a third party, 2015. But even though it wasn't being made by the original team, it quickly became apparent that the new guys were crafting a masterpiece. When he was shown an early build of the game, Spielberg said, quote, "The studio has taken interactive gaming to a level I never thought possible." When Medal of Honor Allied Assault stormed the beaches of gamers' homes in January 2002, it was quickly hailed as a masterpiece of the medium. The game truly turned the intensity up to 11. It also made heavy use of scripted elements, allowing for a level of immersion and excitement that no other game could touch. Taking place in some of the biggest operations of the war, including Torch and Overlord, Allied Assault brought World War II to life in a way no other game ever had. At the time, it was considered one of the single finest first-person shooters ever made, and to this day, it is universally considered the best in the franchise. But going on into the future, Allied Assault's success would prove to be a burden for EA. Because not only would every following Medal of Honor be compared unfavorably to it, but the crew that made it would leave EA to reinvent the war shooter with a franchise that would soon eclipse its forefather. Tune in next time to see Medal of Honor invade the next generation.